Hi, okay, so what I'm going to look at in this tutorial is firstly masking an object, but then also rotoscoping, which is a frame-by-frame animation. So having a mask by itself isn't going to be enough. We're going to have to animate that mask. Okay, so, and that's something that happens quite a lot with compositing work, where you do need to do a little bit of frame-by-frame animation. So it's something to get used to. Not everything can be automated. So what I've got is I've got a video clip. I'm going to drop that down onto the new comp button, so that generate a new comp with this video clip, okay, which is just a shot of a car driving up to the lights and stopping. And what I'm looking to do is actually mask the vehicle so that we've got some objects that will be behind on the street but behind the car, so the car will actually drive in front of them. Okay, so we've also got a mov file called text.mov, and I'm going to drop that on top so we can have it on top. And you can see it doesn't run for as long, and if I play that through, you should see this time what changes is we've got this animation where this text kind of comes across onto the screen. So you can see if I just go back a bit, it's just playing along. In fact, what I can do is, I think if we do that, no, it's on adaptive resolution off. There we go, final quality. So I should always be able to see final quality now, rather than seeing loads of little dots. Okay, and you can see, like I said, as we play through, this text comes in. Okay, and that's a MOV file, that is. So if we turn the background off for a second, you can see with the checkerboard background, this is just a video clip, okay, with some text that sort of moves across. All right, so that's something to be aware of, that you can have video files that contain alpha channels. So you may have done some green screen work, or you may have created your own mask and cut something out, and you then need to send that over to somebody else so they can finish it off. You can have video files that then have alpha channels that have these blank spaces that can then be filled in later. Okay, which is exactly what this is. So it's an animation that was created, exported out as a video clip that would then have the background added to it later. So let's go back to our car. So what we're going to do is, like I said, we're going to cut our car out. Because right now, obviously, the text is, as you can see, the text layer is above the video layer. We want this car video to be on top. And so we're going to use some masking. So what I'm going to do is, firstly, I'm going to just go to the point of fact. Yeah, I'll keep the text on. As I say, I'm not going to turn it off because I want to know just how large my mask actually needs to be. So I'm going to go to the point where, say, the car's in shot, but it hasn't touched the text yet. And I'm going to create a mask. Now you can see as well, by the way, this car has these wheels and sort of got these arches. So even though while it's a solid object, you're not just going to create using straight lines. So let's see how we do that. So I'm going to click my pen tool. And not only that, but in fact, notice as well, it's got soft edges. Yeah, right there. Yes, the car's there, but so is the background. So we've also got to mimic that look as well in order to get our mask to look as good as possible. Okay, so let's go to here. So I'm going to start my mask off here. Right now, I'm just going to start off with solid lines. So you'll see if I click once, it creates this solid line. Okay, that's not really great because, like I said, the car's got a bit of a curve. Well, if you click once, you create straight lines. But if you click and hold, okay, you create what's known as Bezier points. And if you pull, you create these handles. And then you can actually, the more you pull, you can choose where the sort of bend actually is in the line. Okay, so I'm going to pull that in a bit. Maybe just go about there. Okay, and I'm going to do something similar here, and again I'm going to click and use Bezier point just to bend that bottom part out a little bit. Okay, problem or the thing to be aware of is you can see there's handles on both sides, so that means even if I click now once just to create a straight line, okay, notice it's not a straight line, it's actually curved, and it's curved because of that other handle. Okay, so I'm just going to undo that last point. So in order to adjust that, you sometimes have to just pull or one handle only, but we'll deal with that as we come along. So you can see that's happening here. Even though I'm curving that other handle is kind of bending inward, so I need to grab that handle and kind of play with it. Now at this point, both handles are moving together, so actually that's going to be quite difficult. What I would say is, if that's the case, just get your shape made and we can always go back and adjust it. But generally, I'm fine with that. I don't need to worry too much about down here because the text is all the way up there. So a perfect mask down here isn't going to change anything. So I'm not really too bothered there. I'll just click off. And again, click here. And then when I go back to my starting point, you'll notice there's a little circle that appears on the pen tool. And that is to close the shape. And there we go. And you can see the text has disappeared. And that's because I've applied my mask onto my text layer. So if you remember, a mask only keeps whatever's inside of it. So I've just drawn a mask on the text layer, so it's only keeping that blank area of the video that was there. So I've actually put it on the wrong layer. If you do that, it doesn't mean you have to go back and draw your whole mask again. In fact, if I go into here, you'll notice I've got mask properties now. Okay, if I go into that, I'm going to select mask 1 and I'm going to press Command C because I'm on a Mac. If I was on a PC, I would press Control C, and I'm going to select the city video instead, and I'm going to press Command V. There we go, I've pasted my mask there. Once I've done that, I'm going to delete the mask from the text layer. It was never meant to go from there. But either way, you can see now what I've done is, once I've created my mask, I hope that didn't complicate things too much. But like I said, it's useful to know if you do draw a mask on a wrong layer, and trust me, it happens more often than you might think, you can just copy and paste it into the correct layer. But there's my mask. Like I said, it's only keeping the part of the video that I've drawn around. It is not keeping anything else. And that's good now, because what it means is I can rename this city video to mask. Okay, or car mask if you want. In fact, that might sort of help you remember what it's a mask of. Okay, car mask. So I know that's my car, and I'm actually going to drop that on top of my text layer. So now when this car moves, it'll come on top of the traffic. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my city layer and I'm going to drop that underneath. Okay, so I've got a city background if you think about it, then I've got this traffic text on top, and then I've got this car now on top of that. So you can see the text is sandwiched in the middle, so it means the car can actually drive over the text. However, like I mentioned, what we're going to do now is rotoscoping. So if we open up the car mask that we created, okay, we've got mask properties, and if you go to mask properties, you've got a bunch of stuff in there that we can unlock. Here we go. So you've got things like its path, okay, which is actually sort of where it goes, and the general shape it sort of contains. You've got a feather, which actually gives you a softening of the edges, which is kind of what we were talking about earlier when I mentioned that this car has a slightly soft edge because it's out of focus. Well, we can mimic that using the feather. They've got opacity of the actual mask itself, and expansion, because you can actually grow a mask out. In fact, if we just turn the background off for a second, okay, so we can't see that, let's just have a quick look at what some of these things are actually doing. So like I said, a feather, okay, will if we just deselect the mask, see if we can do that. Feather, as I pull it, can you see it softens the edges up? Obviously, I'm going to the real extremes here. We're not going to pull it that much, but that's what a feather is going to do. So a slight push on that feather will give us a nice soft edge. In fact, you can see how hard it is right there. If I just pull it in a little bit and click on that, you can see now it's giving us a softer edge, something that mimics what the video car looks like in the video a bit better. The opacity is just generally the opacity of the object inside the mask. Okay, and then you've got mask expansion, and if you go up, that allows you to expand out from your shape, and if you go down, it allows you to expand it in. So the expansion can be quite useful sometimes, again, if you need to just change the shape a little bit, make it bigger or smaller, rather than redrawing the thing. And then, like I said, mask path itself is actually the shape we have here and where it is on screen. So that's the one we're going to keyframe. So I'm going to turn keyframes on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the background back on as well, just so I can see that, because I'm going to need that in order to follow my car. Now, what I would say is, okay, you can see there's my keyframe there. So that doesn't mean rotoscoping is about frame by frame animation, but what it doesn't mean is that I'm going to just go forward frame by frame now, because I may not need to do that. So I would say what I find generally works faster actually is what I'm going to do next is, now that I've got that, I'm going to move my playhead, and you'll see the car's moving along. And the car you're watching move there, by the way, is the one at the very bottom layer, the background layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep going till the point where the car actually stops. Okay, so we're kind of getting there. You can see it's slowing down to a stop, but I can keep an eye on the wheels and get a general idea of when it actually has done that. There we go. Okay, and because I'm keyframing my mask path, okay, it means that if I then move the mask, which is what I'm going to do now, I'm going to kind of position it back to where it was in the original frame, and you can see it doesn't even match up anyway, but that doesn't matter, because what I'm going to do is now I'm going to click individual points and I'm going to redraw them a bit. Okay, so just make sure that stretches out to the end, and really I guess, yeah, that should be down here, so maybe I should be pulling that down a bit. I think it was around here. Let's pull it up just slightly actually, just in case, and do the same with this, you know, as a curve you're there. And again, we can zoom into the image and get a better, make sure we get a better finish, but I'm kind of happy with that for now. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is actually have a look at that mask, and you see we've got a keyframe there. So it remembers that the mask is this shape here, and it also remembers that the mask is this shape here. And what the software does is then it animates it in between. So if you play it, you'll notice the mask is expanding, okay, and it is expanding over the text just like I wanted it to. It's not following the car in any way that I would like, really. At the end, it's going in the same direction, but the speed is completely off, and that makes sense because the car is slowing down, whereas the mask is going at a constant speed. So the mask only looks at where the car started and where it finished, and then it's trying to average that speed out. So, like I said, that doesn't really work for me at all. But what it does mean is, actually, let's go back a bit. So I'm actually jumping a few frames back. I'm not picking anything in particular at this point. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click individual points, and I'm going to pull them back to where they were sort of in my video, okay, and I'm just kind of setting them up like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that for a few frames for now rather than the whole thing, just to get the speed up to where I kind of want. So again, you can see here it's not doing it. Notice, by the way, these squares, which are my points, are hollow. If they're hollow, it means that they're not selected. If I click on one, it means then I have selected it and I can move it. So that's how we do that. So I click first to select it, and then I just move the point to where I want. Okay, so I'm going to again just move it. And by the way, I'm being a bit quick about this. Obviously, I'd expect you guys to take your time, because if you don't get the mask right, it just won't work. The illusion is sort of given away, really, I guess. So make sure you take your time and just zoom in and check that those points are kind of where you need them to be. Okay, but you can see I'm missing out loads of frames. I'm just kind of picking a few frames now and again. But the reason I'm doing that is because if I start to play it now, notice that actually it's not doing a bad job of keeping up in between those frames. Yeah, it's actually doing okay. So what I find is, in fact, this time I'm going to do an even bigger jump, and I'm going to just miss out a whole section there. And again, I'm just going to kind of get it to where I think it needs to be. Okay, and once I've done that, okay, somehow I managed to zoom out there. But once I've kind of done that, there we go. You can see, look, it's starting to get there. It's starting to work by itself. So actually, it's saving me the hassle of having to go through every single frame possibly. Okay, it might mean that if I've done enough, I can miss some frames out. It doesn't mean I can miss all those additional frames out. I will still have to go in and clean it up, but I can miss a few frames out. By the way, as well, if you want to move the whole shape, for example, so let's say from here, I'm like, actually, I just want to move the whole shape forward. If you click on the word mask path, notice straight away all the boxes now become highlighted. That means if I click on any one, I can just move the whole shape forward if I want to as well. Okay, so that's another thing that you can do. But like I said, you can see I haven't done it frame by frame at this point. What I've done is, in fact, let's click there as well, so we're not selecting the edge, and you can, at least that way helps not seeing the mask now, the yellow lines, because I really need to see that edge. And as I play it, you can see it's not working in a lot of places. It needs cleaning up. But generally the mask is starting to follow it like I wanted it to. Okay, in fact, towards the end where I had my keyframes closer, it's doing a better job. Okay, there it's not. So like I said, so you're going to have to really go in now and do that frame by frame thing. But rather than, like I said, just moving forward linearly from the beginning to the end, I find it actually helps to kind of get your start and end points done, and then kind of just go in and clean it up in between. Okay, and the other thing as well, by the way, I haven't even got my feather on right now, so maybe give it a 3-pixel feather or something like that. Give it that bit of softness back so the feather's a bit softer, and hopefully that sort of helps too. Okay, and the other thing is I can still adjust this too. Okay, to kind of hopefully clean it up. But like I said, it takes a bit of playing, but when you get it right, it looks great, and that's what you really need to focus on.